Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host and partner in Thrive, Mr. Shawn Francis. I am Brian Altunian. And, for those of us who are parents of children with special needs, the day of diagnosis is one that we etched in our memories forever. And it often is accompanied with all of the things that our children will not do in their lives, what they can't. We call it the can't do day. Today's conversation is going to be amazing. Our guest is somebody who was not going to take the words, "you can't do this," to heart. And in fact, she went the other route and said all the things that I can do. And her story is compelling, and it's incredible, and it's impassioned, and cannot wait for you to hear her story. So hang on here for another episode of Just Two Dads. I don't know why I say hang on here for, I don't know. Where's that? Was people, what were they not hanging? I don't know. I've got to,
never know. I think because you care. You don't want people to fall.
I don't want people to fall off. That's it. So hello, everybody. If you're catching us on our Facebook live channel, please enter your comments. Let us know if there's something you want to contribute to the conversation. We'd love to interact with you. If you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel on Just Two Dads, please leave comments there. We've got some great comments from some past episodes, great interaction, great engagement, and subscribe, share with your friends, let them know what it is, especially if it's something poignant or something that they should know, implement. They should reach out to the people on our show. 2 years ago, Shawn and I started this process originally as guests on a podcast, and we thought, we're dealing with so many folks who service the special needs community. Why don't we create our own podcast, our own platform, and shine the spotlight on those folks that are doing amazing things. So that was the beginning, the genesis of Just Two Dads. We really were looking at this as we're just two dads having a conversation or around those that service the special needs community. Started out as a Facebook Live program, now on YouTube, on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, wherever you can access. We're now on every platform. We're on I don't even know. We're down on radio down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, WSTX AM Radio 570. We're on a Roku channel under Empower Media, and we're just expanding our reach, which is great because it gives our audience an opportunity to meet these amazing powerhouse warriors who are servicing our community and making a difference in the world. And so to bring our guest on, I'm going to throw this over to Shawn Francis, who is my partner in business and in so many things in our life. I love doing this work with you. The work that we do in the financial services industry is the thing that we do, but this show is our crusade and one of the reasons why we do the things that we do. It drives us every day. So Shawn, honored as always to be in partnership with you and to welcome you to the show and have you introduce our guest. So how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great, thankful and blessed and ready to jump right into it. And so beautiful. I want to, I love examples that, tell a story of a person's path from point A to point B, especially when at point A, they're told what they can not do, maybe what they shouldn't do. And people that are giving that information are giving it out of love, but they're also giving it out of their own scarcity. And so to be able to take that, especially from somebody that you trust and respect, and just realize that, with all due respect and love, you're wrong. Here's what I'm going to do. Our guest today is the epitome of that. And that is none other than, and Shri, are you going by, is it Shri Gerschler? Or do you want the hyphen with your hyphenated name, Shri Gerschler?
Shri Gerschler. I have the Hatharasinghe in there because I got married before my degree and I didn't want to change everything.
Either way, it all works. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you. I'm sure that you probably just see yourself as doing what you do. Maybe you don't see yourself as a hero, but as far as we're concerned, the guests that we have on are heroes, whether they realize it or not. And every hero has an origin, and the origin of a hero usually dictates where their powers come from. You might not have been bitten from a spider or gotten here by Krypton, but you got a story to tell, and we'd love to hear it, starting with that.
Okay. So my name is Sri, and I I'm an IEP coach, but prior to that, when I was 6 years old, I was told that I couldn't be in a gen ed classroom. So halfway through, I want to say it was kindergarten, they walked me to a building. So I was with my friends in gen ed. They walked me to a building and said, this is going to be your new class. And nobody had told me. I remember doing testing, but I never, nobody said, hey, this is what you have. We're going to switch you to this classroom, things like that. So I was put in a self-contained class for several years until 5th grade. So I could mainstream out to PE, art, the typical inclusion classes. But I spent the majority of my time in the self-contained classroom.
Wow. There's a lesson
they
there to be
They never
learned
told
too.
you why. Yeah, Sean and I talk over each other all the time, but they never told you why. They never.
So
they just pulled you away from your friends, and that was
they
it.
had a meeting with my parents. My parents never. Till this day, because now that I'm older, I went through all of my documentation. I never really had a learning disorder. It was placed under the components of other. So they didn't really I didn't fit this box.
So you were never given a formal diagnosis of any kind then?
Not until I was in college, and I did it myself. And
okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to sticking with the chronology and
Right.
not to jump ahead. Wait a minute, let's get to college with my popcorn.
Yeah.
But no, let's go back to school then. So they did that, and there's a lesson for you educators there to learn, whether you're a principal, a counselor, whoever. Communicate.
And also when you're writing an IEP, look at that particular person's strengths and weaknesses. I did not need to be in a self-contained class the majority of the time. I needed help with reading and writing and math. So those were my 3 weakest points, but it didn't mean that I couldn't do a regular social studies class, a regular music class, all of those things. So I spent a lot of my time away from peers that I could have learned from.
And where were you? Location wise, where were you?
I was
in California.
In California.
Okay.
In the Los Virgenes School District.
Okay. All right. So near Los Angeles, for those that don't know, in Southern California, which is interesting because that's California is fairly progressive when it comes to assistance and education and these types of things. Yeah.
Well, this was in the 80s.
Right. Yeah.
86. Yeah. So it was fairly new. So I was a product of, they didn't really know what to do with me, essentially, right?
Right.
We can be way more creative now, but back then, that was my only option.
And did you have peers in that classroom?
Yes, I had a peer that was in a wheelchair. I had peers that had major behaviors.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So you're now in a classroom with children who've been pulled out of the mainstream educational system, and now, and again, there's labels, right? Back in the 80s, they still didn't really know how to identify, so labeled you. So did you take that on? Did you think that you were different, or you were now in a room with a bunch of children who were different, or
so back then they just became my friends.
Sure.
Because I didn't know any better. One of my best friends, and I'm actually still really good friends with her. She had a twin, and this girl had her vocal cords cut, so she couldn't speak clearly. So she acted we're still friends to this day. My friend Heather, who was in a wheelchair, I was friends with her and her aide. She couldn't talk at all. She had a voice box. So to me, because that was my placement, it felt normal. But when I would go to PE, I did see a difference in the caliber of my peers.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I didn't process it back then.
Amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Shawn.
I'm just fascinated. I'm trying to figure out, maybe you don't know the answer. Why were her vocal cords cut?
Oh, that was, she had a couple of birth defects. She was super low. Something happened to her voice. I didn't really talk to her because it was something that she is self-conscious about. And still to this day, we haven't had that conversation.
Right.
So it was a birth defect. Something happened, and she had gone into major surgeries, but they couldn't fix it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. No, I was just going to say, so you obviously then matriculated, and again with so in middle school, were you still, because I'm assuming middle school was different than your elementary school, was that?
Yes.
And you were still held out of mainstream classes, or were you
So
then
in middle
class?
school, we had a thing, it was called reverse mainstream. So I would get to go to classes with other peers, but I was in English, math, reading with a particular teacher, and that teacher was awful.
Oh gosh.
So that teacher actually came to me and told me that I was too stupid to go to college. So that was
use those words verbatim.
So yeah, she told me that I was dumb. I couldn't go to college, that our whole class was dumb. That we were just supposed to be like working at McDonald's. And then I was on the non-diploma path as well. I didn't know about it. So they wanted us to have like functional life skills, which is great because I mean, I think all kids need to learn functional life skills. But when you're in 6th grade, your life should not be defined by this.
Right. Okay, so reverse mainstream. So again, and to some degree, it makes sense. If you need a little extra assistance in school, you're pulled out, you have a little special, maybe more, one-on-one or a little bit more direct help and support. Okay, I can see that. And then in
high school.
So that was middle school. So then in high school, no, we're progressing here now. And then in high school, how was that situation? Was that?
So high school, I got to pick an elective, and I picked psychology because I just naturally was drawn to that. My psychology teacher told me that I had an IEP. He told me all of the things that I needed to hear from a teacher's standpoint. He told me that I was probably dyslexic. He taught me ways to teach my brain how to remember words and how to do things. And he actually said that he was going to help me fight for getting my IEP completely removed because he didn't feel like I needed it.
Okay.
So he sat with me and my parents at the IEP table.
Now we're getting to the core of this. Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
Shawn.
two things. How old were you when? Well, I'm sorry, this is more than two.
This is high school.
Kind of go down one by one. So you were in high school, right? So when this teacher said, you're not smart enough, stupid, whatever, and then says this about your classmates as well, what did you take with that? Was that
was
teacher
middle
ever
school.
brought? That was middle school.
That was middle school. So I'm naturally a stubborn person. I always have been. And that the best way I can describe it is it kind of lit a fire in me. And I was like, I'm not going to let anybody tell me no. Yeah. Like if I want to do something, I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Did you tell your parents?
So my parents knew, and my parents through this whole time, like they hired tutors, like they really were trying to help me. My actual special education teacher was my tutor in elementary school, but she didn't know what I was diagnosed with. She didn't really, looking at it from the point of view I look at it now, I don't feel like she was really helpful, and it could have been a money thing for her. Lots of things, right? Like, I don't feel like I was ever given a fair shot because nobody looked at me and said, hey, this is how you learn. We just got to give you the tools, right?
Okay.
Right.
Now,
and you had an IEP throughout, and your parents would sit in an IEP meeting, but then you never really had.
I never went to them.
Yeah, you never went to them, and you just knew what work you had to do for that year to be successful in your IEP.
Yes.
And so this teacher in middle school tells you you're all too stupid to graduate. Incredible. Then you get to high school, and is this, and again, these days in California, when I was in high school in California, it was 10, 11, and 12th grade.
Yeah.
9th grade was still middle school. So
9th grade. I was in 9th grade.
Okay. Yes. So you're in 9th grade, and this teacher says to you, Sri, here's the IEP. This is what they say you have. And I don't believe any of this.
So yeah, he pulled up my IEP and he's like, I want to show you something. Because we were talking about something with the brain. And he's like, I think this is possibly what you have. And nobody had ever had that conversation with me. Nobody said, hey, let's talk about how you think. So he sat down and he showed me my IEP goals, and he showed me, he talked to my other English teachers. He talked to literally all of my other teachers to see what plan would I benefit from. So he took that proactive step for me.
What is his name, and is he teaching today?
So he's retired. His name is Mr. Bushner. He's an amazing teacher.
Was that here the same school district? Was that still in
Yes, it was still in the same school district.
Incredible.
Do you know his first name?
Larry
Bushner.
Yes.
Okay,
right, so
good.
And on the wall of heroes in the world, right? Larry Bushner.
Well, he was mine. Like, we used to lunch in his class. Me and a couple of friends. Like, he was amazing.
Well, here's what I want to point out. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
We can do this all day. This is just Shawn and I are so fascinated by this. First of all, by you, and because we know you today, so we can't wait for everybody to hear how this is all transitioned. But we're going to talk over each other. So, but he, rather than go through the list of the things that you cannot do, he started to go through the list of things that you can do, and how you can really be a self-advocate, right? How you can teach yourself, train yourself, support yourself in learning. Correct?
Yes.
What I was gonna add is, for anybody that's listening here today, you could be listening to this live. You might be listening to it a week from now. We're live on the 27th of April. You could be listening to it years or months from now. But if you are listening to this and you get inspired in any way, shape, or form, not by Brian or I, but from what you have heard or hear from here going on from Shri, understand that part of the value in that comes from Larry Bushner, which, he's probably just like doing his job. So each pebble in the stream of existence, right? We affect each other, so just don't underestimate that. So if you see something wrong, speak up. You see something that needs to be said to someone to let them know about their worth and they're disillusioned by it, make sure you let them know. I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue.
No, on that note too, please, if you are an educator of any sort, don't ever tell a child that they can't do something. Show them the potential that they have, because those words can still make me want to cry.
Yeah.
It is so hurtful to be that age and say you can't do anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I refrain from asking the name of the teacher that said it, but
no, you wouldn't.
We're not doing that.
Oh, I have a story about her, and I'll tell you later.
Okay, good.
I'm sure.
Good.
But the problem is that teacher represents a whole swath of society that has a judgment about anybody who has a challenge, and is willing to basically just discount their ability to make a contribution. And I would say, and I would argue with you, Shawn, I don't think Larry Bushner was just doing his job. I think Larry Bushner took pride in the work that he did and made it his job was to make sure that, his students got access to the best opportunities.
Right. I'm
that
speaking
they had, right?
Anyone that may think that it's just, and for him, it's probably, like who he is. By the same token, for anybody listening, don't underestimate the value of doing the right thing. Like, it's just what you do. Just what you do, if it's the right thing, has the power to change the world.
Well, and it's empathy and love, right? It always comes from that place of empathy and love, because if you see a child and that child has had some struggles, but is unclear about what the cause is or where it may be coming from, or even know that they have access to something that could support them, what you want to do is you want to support. And so, so amazing. I love
the empathy and the grace even needs to be extended to the teacher, in the hope that maybe she listens to it and and grows from it. And who knows, maybe she's grown from it since then. And who knows what the case is.
Well, I think the work that Shri does now professionally is directly related to this experience that this teacher had on your life. And I'm so, we
have polar opposites of teachers, right?
Yep. And everything in between, really. And the reality is everything in between in our educational system. And so, we hope that when it comes to our children, and there's so much awareness, these days, obviously April is autism, awareness month and autism acceptance month. And there's so much more awareness today than when you were in school in the 80s, or even for my daughter who had a diagnosis in 97, that was delivered in the most, cruel, lack of bedside manner way. Again, of all the things that she wouldn't do, she was 18 months old. How the heck is she going to, you can tell me she can't drive? Like, it's crazy. Anyways, such a great, so there's, and by the way, to your point, we as parents were like, we're not going to accept that. Like, I'm not going to accept that as a sentence. We're going to focus on what tools we can provide our child.
And my parents were like that too. Yeah.
I get it. God bless them. That's fantastic.
They just didn't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Because when you come into this world and you don't have somebody that's, had gone through this, what are you supposed to ask, right? So
right.
I don't blame them for not asking the right questions, but I help other parents ask the right questions because I don't want their kids to be affected like I was.
And thankfully, you're in a position now where you can actually do that. So now you're no longer on no diploma path. You're actually on a diploma path, and about to be.
So I graduated
university. Yes.
And Mr. Bushner made me apply for. They call them junior colleges, so it's like a 2-year college.
Yeah.
And he said that he thought that psychology would be great for me, but he said just go see how you do. And he actually he taught me the accommodations that I needed to be successful. And I graduated Pierce College in the Valley with straight A's. I had never been an honor student. I was tutoring people in psychology classes back then. And I transferred to UCSD, graduated with honors over there. So beautiful. I just needed somebody to help me understand how I learned.
Yeah. Go back to then what was probably like some kind of, I don't know, out of body experience. Funny, I found myself wondering the other day, do we need to be unconscious to have an out of body experience just in terms of raising our consciousness? Go back to the moment where you're on this path and wait a minute, people are coming to you for help and valuing your time, and you're getting all these A's after struggling. With as much detail as you can give, what did that feel like?
So it made me feel like how I always felt about myself, but there was a disconnect, right? Like I knew that I was smart, but I knew I wasn't retaining the information. So it kind of put those two worlds that I had thought about together. And I actually went into teaching because of the tutoring, because people were like, you explain things the way that I understand.
Let me ask you this. Beautiful. For most people, when people's words are coming at you, people that have degrees, names, and or titles, those things usually take precedence over, the feeling that you might have of, of yourself, your self-worth. What is it that you think allowed you to feel that those words aren't true? There's just a disconnect, because when you're young enough and teachers are telling you that you're not smart and this isn't going to happen, I know I was affected that way for the longest time. How did you still retain that thought? Was it your parents? Was it a belief in something greater? How do you explain that?
So back then I was on survival mode, and I knew my end goal was to be done with high school. I didn't want to further my education. I just wanted to be done because of the experiences. So half of middle school, I actually blocked out a lot of the things. And I was on autopilot because it was such a bad situation for myself. I just wanted to get out. Yeah. I went into survival mode, basically. Yeah. So there was nothing in me that really said, okay, I can do this. I know that I'm smart. I need to be done. And I wanted nothing to do with her. I faked being sick a lot, not wanting to go to her class, things like that.
Sure. Okay. So we've now thrived as opposed to just survive.
Yeah.
And you've gone to junior college, and then you get accepted to transfer over to UC San Diego. You graduate with honors in psychology. Was that your degree?
Psychology was my degree. There, I actually worked at a psych lab, and I was introduced to autism, and I fell in love with working with the autistic population.
And that's when you thought your own diagnosis, right, came to be.
So Yes. So in college, they had us do labs and we had to talk to a psychologist for our degree. And so I went to one and we did testing and I found out that I had dyslexia. That was my problem all of these years. And if somebody had looked,
Oh my gosh, incredible.
if somebody would have thought about that, I would have been in a such different place in my life. But
You know, I want to, and I was, and again, being an alumnus of the UC school system, you are about the fourth or fifth person that I know who was diagnosed with dyslexia in college at a UC school. It was almost as if this was an area that, that there was an awareness, I think, system-wide, because it was UCLA, Berkeley, now San Diego as well, where you think about, man, all those wasted anxiety, the mental, difficulties just getting through high school in general, but then to add on the anxiety about, ability to read or not read. And, and if somebody had looked and said, this is possibly dyslexia,
yeah,
how much that would have been, it would not have been an issue. It would have been, something that you could address, that you could focus on. And so that's great. So you found dyslexia and you loved working with autistic children. But was that your only diagnosis? Was dyslexia?
that was my only diagnosis.
Interesting. Amazing. You can't think about, so when people are given a sentence, this is what you are not going to be able to do. And some people will just be resigned and go, hey, I can't do this because I was told in school that I wasn't going to be able to do this. Right? Think about that. How many people choose the path of, least resistance and resignation and cynicism and just go, well, I guess this is how my life is going to be, or use it as a crutch. Well, I can't do that because I've got dyslexia, when the reality is you were like, no, I don't believe this. And in fact, I'm going to fight through the issues that I have, and I'm going to actually succeed and again, thrive. And then at that point, did you make a decision that this is what you wanted to do with your life, or tell us?
So I made a decision in college that I wanted to serve others and I wanted to help kids understand how to learn. And I didn't know what that would look like. That was just what I wanted to do. So I went into psychology. I got my master's in human behavior, and I actually was a case manager for several years for in-home behavioral therapy. And I worked with a lot of psychologists because that was my background too. And I loved that work and I still love it. But I started sitting at the IEP table for my clients. And I realized that this big IEP world, there was not enough education out there for parents and students and even teachers and admins, because they're supposed to be writing these goals and they're not really looking at the kids. They're looking at how do these kids fit the box, rather than let's look at the kid. Let's look at what they're struggling with. Let's write a plan based upon them. And that's when I started doing IEP and advocacy.
Got it. My daughter, Jordan, by the way, who has been through similar experience, and she put on that in the comments that she shares a story. She, again, all of the things that she was told she couldn't do. She drives to work. She's married. She has a job. She lived alone, now married, and has also become a teacher and is an aide in a special needs classroom. So, it's so great. Yeah, and a stepmom, among other things. But what's so great is to see you take your personal experience and say, I'm going to do something and make a difference in somebody else's life. I'm proud of my daughter Jordan and the work that she's done, and she, she fights every day to be successful and to keep going, and to have some success along the way is amazing. And so again, I as a dad, you're not my daughter, but as a dad, I will tell you, I'm proud of you for taking your experience and then wanting to serve others. Shawn and I share this concept that, we think of you as a hero. We think of you as a warrior fighting to make a difference in other people's lives. And so, we honor you, and just want you to know that for our children and for their children and for our community, we're grateful to you for taking this, because you could have taken another path. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I never look at it as a hero. I don't think any of us in this world do that. I feel like everybody falls into a place where the passion drives, and that's what I do. As a mom, because I have 3 kids, and I'm going to cry because I have 3 kids. I have a son that doesn't fit a box. He's very similar to me, and I will fight till the day I die for him to get whatever he needs, and every other parent.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, Larry Bushner
Right.
would say the same thing. He's not a hero either, and yet we all think if he hadn't taken you aside and spent the time with you, think about the people who would not be served today.
Yeah.
The people who haven't heard of you yet that are going to be served as a result, and they will probably serve others as well. So
You're gonna make us cry
with,
too, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, don't be. Sticking with chronology. So, you're in college at this point. You've now found what you think is your purpose, and you're sitting at the IEP table and, providing in-home therapy and everything. What is the next step from there? And then you mentioned your children, and I'm going to ask, I know there's parents out there that are listening and sort of, wondering the same thing with regard to their child's, future and hope and relationships and love and things of that sort, which is, what Brian and Jordan have shown as an example by the fact that she's married and the fact that you are and have children as well. Continue on to the path from that work that leads to not only what you're doing now, but meeting your husband and becoming a wife and mom.
So I'm going to say this coming from a parent's point of view. I met my husband in college. We had a normal life. We deal with everyday things. It's not easy. Sometimes I have to have him proofread the things that I write. He gets really frustrated with that. And then I have to remind him, I didn't get the education that you got, so I'm going to need you to help. But coming from that point of view as a parent who gets really tough news, I want to tell you that it's going to be okay. I want to tell you to look ahead and not be stuck in that moment, because people change constantly. Your kid is not going to be who they are right now. And hope is something that I need you guys to have. I know that it's hard, but if you have that, a lot can happen. And be honest with your kids. Honesty with kids, I feel like, has been a huge difference. A lot of my clients will tell me, I didn't think I should tell him he was autistic. And once you tell them that, a light goes on in their head and they get it. So honesty with your kids is going to go a long way, because they will understand why they have extra services and the things that they have.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. And it's huge because, for instance, in our case, we're not sure, what my son comprehends in terms of what autism means and, and that kind of thing. So that's something that's always being explored. But I know that, if you think about the manner in which we communicate with children, period, a lot of the whole, hey, how's it going? What's your name? There's a certain amount of pretense and lack of reality that's there to begin with. And people that are always acknowledged as, wow, kids really seem to relate to you. That's because I talk to them like I'm talking to you, like I'm having a conversation. Yes. The same thing applies there. Don't sell anybody short in that regard, and for us, that means exploring the words and does he get that? Does he understand what that means? Never, ever, ever stop the fight to break through the wall of trying to get through to your child to make sure that they understand the things that they need to, because we always have a fight where, well, they don't do so-and-so, they don't do this. And that's not what they do. So then you limit yourself, and you're an example of what happens when we don't do that. I'm speaking from experience here as well too. So
never,
I was just gonna say, go ahead.
Never limit a child. A child is capable of a lot if you explain it to them in a way that they can understand. I don't talk to my kids in baby talk. I have a 4-year-old, and it's really funny. I had relatives over, and the baby, I call her the baby, she's not the baby, but the little one was getting into something. I was like, please don't do that. You're going to choke and die. And she looked at me. She's like, did you really just say? I was like, I just told her not to do something, because the reality of the thing is she will choke.
That's funny.
But I've never sugarcoated anything for my students that I've taught, because I taught special ed for a while. I was an aide. Like, I've never looked at a child differently for their disability.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about now professionally what you're doing. And again, you started to say you sit in these IEP meetings, and so, but you're not just an IEP coach, right? Because you do other things. You share with everybody with what you do, and you're no longer in California either, by the way. That's just want to make that clear too, right?
I'm in North Carolina, and I work with parents pretty much around the world. I help you break down a diagnosis. I help parents understand the milestones that their kiddos should have and ways that we can increase them. I help set up IEPs. I coach parents through the IEP process. If I can't attend your meeting, I will look at your IEP, talk to you, and kind of interview you and see what needs your child needs. And we put those into the IEP. I also do potty training. I'm a potty training consultant. I do lots of things to make parenting easier, and that's kids with or without anything.
That's an awesome. So you're a resource. So I'm gonna throw your website up on the. It's long because your name is long. So yes. For those who are looking at the screen, and we'll put this in the chat as well. Go ahead, Sri. Do you want to pronounce it, since I don't want to mess it up?
Hatharasinghe-Gerschler.com. After I graduated and I got my master's, I was not married and I didn't want to go back and switch things. So my name is hyphenated. So this is where we're at.
There it is. Just, if you're going to go to this regularly, folks, just like maybe make it a bit.ly or something, and then you'd make it a little. And I had to type it a couple of times.
And if you want to find me, I'm on social media all over. You can Google my name and the social media should pop up. But yeah, I'm happy to help or have a conversation with a parent that's struggling, because I get it.
Yeah. And speaking of that, so somebody can, so let's say somebody's listening in North Carolina. Obviously, they can reach out to you because they're there and they're local. If they're where are you? Are you in or near Raleigh?
I'm actually near Charlotte.
Okay, so you're near Charlotte. So somebody near Charlotte, obviously, can reach out to you. But then there's no limitation for someone that might be in California, Wyoming, New York, or anywhere else, correct?
Correct. So I actually have worked with teachers in Wyoming, and I have several clients in California. And I actually know California schools like the back of my hand, because I've been working with them for about 14 years. So
right, because that's where you're from originally.
Yeah, and the law is the law everywhere. So I like to make sure the schools are following the laws, but I'm also a teacher, so I get the restrictions. So working collaboratively is how I like to do things.
Gotcha.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Good. And how long have you been doing this now?
14 years. It'll be 15 next year.
Wow.
So
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And how old are your kids now?
So I have a little, my oldest just turned 11 yesterday.
Oh, awesome.
Happy birthday.
I have an 8-year-old. He'll be 9. And that's the one that doesn't fit in the box. So I do a lot of stories about him. He doesn't like me to share too much, so I share what I can. And then I have an almost 4-year-old. So I'm amazing. A busy mom.
Yes, for sure. And it's interesting. Shawn and I have had this conversation. It was some of our early episodes of our Just Two Dads podcast, where we talked about our kids and their awareness of how we talk about them and when we talk about them and what stories we share, what we share of their lives. And, it's so funny because Jordan, my daughter Jordan, she goes by Jo Quinones. Now that's her married name. And Joe and I have, we're incredibly close, even though we live 3,000 miles away. We talk nearly every single day. She's been a part of our conversation since the very beginning. She's been a part of the conversation when Shawn and I started working with the special needs community. Jordan in our financial services business, Jordan was in the business with us as well. And, she was, as much a part of the conversation as the two of us. And so for us, it's always been, she was willing to, be out there and be, so I don't say a representative, but somebody she really represents hope for a lot of families who have younger children. And to your point, they're like, oh my God, I don't know what the future is going to look like. Well, Jordan's one of the good, happy stories where you can say, look, there's life, may look slightly different than what you imagine, but it's possible. She's been very open and supportive and happy to be a part of this conversation, but some are not. And the fact that your 8, almost 9-year-old is aware enough really about what this means and about his own situation, say, I'm not comfortable with you sharing. I would say that that's probably a reflection of how you and your husband parent. And from your own experience, I don't find that to be a normal, I mean, I can't say the word normal, but you know what I mean? I don't think that's a normal reaction that a child has at that age. Would you agree with that? Or?
So yes, but my kids also know that I'm on social media. And so they know what I post. So my 11-year-old, for example, was like, please do not post pictures of me on my birthday. Okay, well, fine. Now you're giving me restrictions. All right. So I have an honest policy with them. So my son actually volunteered to do a video with me. Like, he'll do things if I ask, but there's some stories that he likes to, he'll say, can you talk about me, but don't say my name. Things like that. He's highly sensitive. So it's good. But I mean, he did it. He helped me. We dealt with a lot of behavioral issues, especially during the pandemic, because my kiddo is very, very much schedule oriented. Welcome to pandemic when the world shut down. We were all home. So behaviors was our thing. And I actually videotaped one of his behaviors because I wanted to show it to the doctor. And he was like, do not put that anywhere. And I said, okay. And then, but he said, I was talking to him about how he did de-escalate. And he's like, you can post that. I think that was really good. I think that's going to help another kid.
Love that.
That's not even just good. That's like great. I know.
Love that.
There's a mom that I know who's actually going to be one of our future shows, and she's extremely transparent with regard to her daughter's challenges, the meltdowns, and everything. And what she does is she'll tackle worthy comments that come from people that are asking, and I sit in admiration and kind of like, I don't know if I could do that, because I've posted things with regard to my son and I, especially with regard to our relationship, our time together, and things like that. And my wife is guarded about that. We've pulled back from how much of that is shown. It's a very personal thing, but there's something to be taken from that. I think it's tremendous for your son to be able to say, I don't know about that. I don't want that posted. And I was telling Brian, like, you know what? I don't know. Like, for instance, my son is verbal, but the manner in which he uses the words can be limited, although his reading is beyond his grade. And I don't know how he feels about his image being posted. And I like to look at himself. He loves him some him. So he'll be in front of the mirror and he's literally, because now he's got hair on his chin. He's literally like
looking.
Yeah. And so I think he's cool with seeing himself, but I don't know if he has, if he is the wherewithal to know if there's an issue with that being there for the world to consume. That's another, we could have a whole show on that.
For sure.
It's all about consent. So like my kids, I had somebody ask if my kids could do a podcast. I asked them and I said, do you want to do this? This is what you would have to do. And two out of the 3 of them wanted to do it. So, if you're transparent with them, they're open to helping others. Like,
yes,
there's studies that came out that said that peer teaching is more effective than actual teacher to student teaching, because they want to be cool. They want to learn from their peers. So it's something, it's something to keep in your mind.
Yeah, because I know neurotypical kids want nothing to do with that.
I was going to say it gets even worse.
Like, don't put any videos of me on there. Do not.
That's my daughter.
Yeah. And by the way, not only that, but my 14-year-old is like, don't post videos of me. And why are you posting videos of yourself at all? Why are you even on social media? and get off TikTok. I mean, like, they really have an opinion about it, you know.
That is my 11-year-old. Why do you need these accounts? You are not cool.
Yeah. Don't put, oh God, Dad, don't comment on my picture, right? Why did you like my post? I'm like, well, I thought it was funny. Like, you know,
I can check in on their accounts. Oh, look at what they posted, but they're like, you can't be my friend or follow me.
So my 11-year-old is not allowed to have things because she lost her privilege with that, but she had to teach me how to use TikTok, and she's like, why am I teaching you if I can't even use it?
That's funny. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the relationship you've described about your children and how you as parents, and I'm assuming does your husband support your social media activities?
Oh, my husband hates social media, hates it with a passion.
Some have made actually a joke about, you know, on social media where one actually hates the other one being on social media, and they make a parody of it. But he's
okay. I mean, I don't post too often about the children. I'll post like our adventures. I do a lot with our kids. We go out and we do things. So I post about it because as a mom, having the kiddo with sensory issues. So my son has sensory issues, and also he couldn't speak. So we had speech therapy, all of the things. For him, I had to advocate. I was at the doctor's office literally every day until they gave me a speech referral. So my husband knows that it's helping other families, so he's okay with it.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. And the fact, again, that your children at such a young age acknowledge that, you know, this is going to help somebody else, you know, then it's okay. And that's how I get away with it with my kids. I'm like, this is not just helping other people, right? So this is amazing. I love it. I think for people, I'm going to put your website up one more time for folks to see. If we put it in the chat for those who, if you're listening and you come after the fact, you'll see it in the chat. You know, how you can get in touch, and obviously on Instagram as well, because when you venture into this world, most often not by choice, you don't know where to turn, and you don't know what resources are available. And again, as we mentioned, there are some people who will just take a diagnosis or a statement as fact and leave it at that. But for those who are really seeking out resources and support and help, there are a lot. This is part of why we do this podcast, to help spotlight those folks. You, from experience and as a child, having gone through this, as having a mentor, a true mentor who opened your eyes to possibility, as now a parent, a mom, an educator yourself, and you know, really a consultant, if you will. You really, we would say in baseball, we'd call you a 5-tool player, because you really have the experience that will be tremendously helpful. And, you know, we hope that people will reach out to you and get the support that they need, because, right, it could make the difference in the world. It could change the world.
And I hope everybody takes from, you know, the example from this too. Those of us that are in the special needs community, whether we're parents or caregivers to someone with a diagnosis, or you are in fact someone with a diagnosis, everything that the human spirit needs, those with a diagnosis need the same thing, just on steroids, 10 times more. And so in life, generally speaking, we tend to lean towards and chase, if we have the ambition to do so, success versus fulfillment. When you add the special needs component, things get twice as muddy. And I think that what you've done here is such a great example of, you know, finding fulfillment, because there's a lot of successful people that have no fulfillment, therefore they're unhappy. So they may have wealth, they may have material things, but they have no fulfillment. If you can tie your work to fulfillment, that ensures your happiness. So I want to thank you, because you've given, you know, such a great example of finding that. So I think people need to, anybody that's listening, and if you've got a job that you're not crazy about, a career, generally speaking, special needs or not, make sure that you try and shine a light on what it is that fulfills you. If you can tie that to your profession, then your time on the planet has so much more value, because it's going to go by fast. And speaking of going by fast, we're at the point right now where we've come up to just about the 10-minute mark, with 10 minutes left, where we ask the question, that is as follows. Our ability to change the world, make it a better place, is tied in some way, great or small, to our ability to change ourselves. With that said, should you give us an example of one thought, philosophy, or belief that you strongly held true once upon a time and now no longer believe to be true?
Okay, so I'm going to go with IEP process as a child. So as a child, I thought that IEPs were a negative thing. I thought I was dumb. I thought I was stupid. I know that that wasn't the case. And with the help of Mr. Bushner and all of the other teachers, I was proven wrong. And I know that the IEP process can be difficult for parents, but I'm here to tell you that with the right support, parent input statements are huge. It doesn't need to be scary. It doesn't need to be that thing that you dread. I actually enjoyed going to my IEP meetings when I was older because I could see the progress that I was making. So progress, think about progress. That's how we all grow as individuals.
Definitely.
I can't wait to see your TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well,
We're going to be there, right? Make sure
I mean,
you get a ticket.
volunteer me up for TED Talk. I'll do it.
Okay.
I think it would be amazing if, Larry Bushner were there in the audience or on stage.
I actually think he had passed away.
Oh no, really?
I need to double check because he was older when he taught us. So I need to check to see if his health is okay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But I will put a picture up of him.
Yes. I mean, again, I think anybody who has an impactful teacher, that's a memory that they carry with them for their entire lives. I mean, our educators are in such a, phenomenal position to mold our children's futures, and both positively and negatively. Your first teacher who told the room of children that they were stupid and would never amount to anything is horrific. And I'm gonna just hope that teacher was having a negative down either day, week, month, year experience, and that was her outlet or their outlet. I'm not sure who was, but I would say that I hope and believe strongly that we have more Mr. Bushners than we have the others. And let's just hope that we continue to move the needle that way towards Mr. Bushner and supporting our children. Shri, this has been, we probably talked more during this episode than I think. First of all, we definitely talked over each other. We talked more because I think we're so engaged and your energy is so infectious, and the work that you're doing and how it came about. Oh God, it was such a great to spend this time with you. I hope that our listeners got value. I'm going to put up here one of our friends of the show, Auntie Pua, we like to call her. Auntie Pua put a note up about, thank you for sharing your experience. I think that people who seek you out are going to find that they're going to be supported in the work that they're doing. And for those that are seeing this, again, even after the fact, know that there are such amazing people in the world like Sri who are helping people navigate those waters that can be difficult. And IEPs don't have to be scary, and they're not negative. They don't mean negative things. They're an individualized educational program to help your child succeed, to give them goals and the tools to get there. And if they're surrounded by a team of people that are all, focused on the same common goals, then our chance of success goes up significantly. So, yes. So thank you for your time today. It has been, amazing and enthralling. Frankly, I'm in love with you and what you do. So thank you for the work that you're doing. As we wrap up the show, and all of the folks that are listening to us on podcasts and catching us on their mobile phones and, on Facebook Live, or even after the fact on YouTube, thank you for your comments. Joe, as always, I love you. Thank you for being a part of our show and part of our commentary. She's always part of our audience. For Shawn Hall, who is our producer in Hawaii, who actually does our graphics and does and supports our efforts in Hawaii. Thank you, Shawn Hall, for the work that you're doing. We are grateful to be doing the work that we do. This is not work for us, as I said in the very beginning. For Shawn and I, this is our crusade. This is what makes our hearts full. It's the fulfilling aspect of the stuff that we do. The work that we do is work that we do to pay our bills, but this work is the work that's meaningful and we know will have a larger impact on a larger community. So as I always say at the end of every episode, empathy and love, it is, and in your case, a perfect example, but empathy and love is always, look at somebody's situation, and before you become judgmental or make a comment that could have a detrimental impact on somebody, be empathetic and have some understanding for what the other person may be going through. You may not know. And last but not least, if we look at the world through the lenses of love, the world is just a better place. So again, I thank you, Shri, and I'm going to throw it to Shawn to close us out. Thank you again for your time today.
I want to thank everyone that took the time to join us here today, and everyone who will be doing so. I want to thank you for your time, Shri. And we were so enthralled with your story that I forgot, if you're new to a diagnosis and or new to an IEP, as Shri said, it's not a sentence. It can be a scary and intimidating thing. It was like that for us for the first one. But know that you don't have to sign the IEP on the spot there when they give it to you. If they make you feel like you have to do that, you don't. You can take it home, review it, and then after you sign it, you can have it amended as well. It's their assessment of where your child is at. It's only as scary as we make it, and perspective is truth. So keep that in mind. I want to make sure that I thank the women in my life without whom I would not be. That includes my amazing mom, Jan, and my wife, Laura. And just remember that, people need to be seen. They need to be heard. They need to know that they matter. And, it's as true as it is corny, which is that love is the answer to everything, and that is what we need. So thank you so very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on Just Two Dads. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. See you on next Just Two Dads.